Nio has broken out of this descending triangle as well as this long-term descending resistance, guys. And as we continue to push up here, buyers are continuing to stay in control. Closing today at that $439 level and remaining quite strong after breaking out of such an important zone, both in a medium-term aspect and a very long-term aspect. With volume and liquidity rolling in here, guys, are buyers going to continue to push price up, possibly seeing a massive move and continuation up, or are the sellers going to step in here, guys? Now, starting this analysis on the weekly time frame, we see a drastic sell-off, right? We could go back all the way, guys. This was from the $66 level. See a lot of volatile chop, right? Not great. But then you see, guys, price comes down, tries to find a bottom. We kind of find a little bit of a support level here, right? Find a nice leg up, but also find a retracement leg down. And then we get pushed all the way down, ultimately to around that $338 level. We hold a little bit higher here. But what we see in more recent price action are these descending triangles, right? We see this formation where get that big leg up, but we kind of squeeze into this triangle-like pattern. Once we get to the edge and bottom, someone has to win, buyers or sellers. We see a huge squeeze up. And then here, guys, what we're seeing is a very long-term resistance. So kind of another little descending triangle, right? But very long-term resistance. And we see this closer eye view price action where it gets to the bottom there and someone has to win, squeeze out of that, and then squeeze out of that long-term resistance. If we look on the monthly, this is pretty much around those lows, right? Those all-time lows of the stock. As from these bottoms, guys, this was a little bit further down, right? But from this bottom, we saw that drastic huge move all the way up to that 66. But then we saw that full correction. A lot of people would think you're crazy if at this point said, we're going to retrace this entire move all the way back down to around these lows, but that actually ends up happening. And now Nio's kind of in a desperate spot to see an uptrend, to see buyers really come in here and see a very nice movement up. Might not get a crazy leg like that, but what we're seeing, guys, is an obvious range get broken out, a medium term to short term range as well as a longer term range. So definitely nice price action on the weekly, pretty much double bottoming in formation. So definitely a good spot for some upside potential, a lot more room to the upside than the downside at this point. All right, guys, now on the daily, we see that longer term resistance, right? If we trend back, this is the previous descending triangle like pattern. Breakout there, we get all the way up to that 771 level. And we see a lot of volatility. So that's the main thing that sticks out here. A lot of chop after getting out of that zone. We see a huge movement up, tapping that 770. And we see a huge leg down, right? Price tries to hold, but we ultimately trend downwards in a descending fashion. So we end up coming up here, tapping this resistance here, come down, try to tap again as buyers are trying to be strong here, but sellers win that battle. And we flush all the way down to the bottom of that triangle-like pattern. Then we get in this tighter type of triangle-like pattern. And we're kind of still descending, but we're a lot more tight. See a lot of volatile chop. We see tighter price action. We do find a little bit of an ascending support level here. And once we hit that, guys, and find this bottom, we do see buyers gain that full control, kind of to the top of that range, but then we see a little bit of back and forth. Sellers push to the floor, buyers push it to the top of that resistance. And then we see the tightest price action we've gotten on Nio for a very, very long time, building that energy, gearing up for something big. And that's where we see that wide bar, obvious green wide bar out of that shorter term resistance, and then a continuation out of that long term resistance. And this would be a point where sellers step in here. We're breaking a very long-term resistance, and sellers would typically step in here. It doesn't happen. We continue our movement up. Sellers try to push it down. Once we get higher, cannot do so, and we fully keep on going up. We see a bit of selling pressure here. Big top wick, but we also see some buying pressure. So a little bit of indecision, but definitely looking pretty good to continue our run, given that there wasn't a bunch of selling pressure once we broke out of this range here. We're kind of gearing up towards this a little bit of tight consolidation zone. If we're marking up these rough levels, we're kind of right around that area, like that 450 to 460-ish area. So we could see a little bit of chop, but this wasn't a breakout zone. This didn't break out. This was just descending. We've gotten extremely tight and we've fully broken out. So we could be seeing a lot of upside for some time, guys, as Nio definitely looks very good here after breaking out of two important resistances. And volume has definitely flushed in. After we got that big move up from that tight range, we see volume flush in, see a little bit of indecision at these candles here, but we see volume spike again as we get that another move up. So if volume and liquidity can keep on coming in here, guys, we're definitely looking nice to continue our move up. And in the longer term picture, we definitely could be looking good for a retest of this zone here. Top zone where we found some resistance at 540 to 550 zone. Find a little bit of resistance around that point. Furthermore, from there, we could be retesting that 770. I think that we do end up ripping here, guys, as once we saw this breakout here, we saw a leg, which was a smaller range, right? Because we're talking about one range here. We saw that breakout, and we saw a leg of about 100%, guys, right? If we're taking it here, that would put us breaking through that 540 very nicely and around that $7 level. Not quite, but keep in mind, we're breaking out of a shorter term descending triangle resistance level as well as a long term one. So seeing that 100%, definitely not out of the question within, a good due time. As we saw pretty quickly, that nice move up, 100% of the stock, not in a crazy amount of time. We're talking about a month and a half of price action here when we got that huge move. So definitely remain bullish on Nio. I think we're getting incredible price action after breaking out. We don't see that sellers step in drastically and aggressively. All the right signs. We do see a little bit of indecision on the most recent daily candle, but that's to be expected as we're blowing through these ranges. Definitely what I'm seeing. We remain bullish and have a price target of 540. And if we can keep ripping, we could definitely be seeing 100% or more movement in the long term. If bears step in, it's got to be sooner than later, keeping us within this threshold and trying to throw us back within these resistances here. But I truly don't see that happening with this current price action. All right, guys, now on the hourly, we see a better perspective of breaking out of that range. So we see some volatile chop within that range. We're tightening up comparative to what we had around this range, but nevertheless, still some volatile chop. But then once we find that very tight consolidation range, and it's marked up right here, guys, we see very obvious tight price action right by that 338 as support, 357-ish range as resistance. And once we kind of chop around here, guys, we see that leg up breaking through that shorter term resistance and continuing past that long term resistance. And you see that volume and liquidity really spikes and buyers really blow through this longer term resistance. And it's been a resistance for some time, right? We saw it in the past, guys, tapping those 2 times, getting shut down. So we know that buyers really got to step in if we want to see a move above this. And we see this nice green bar just blowing past this move after blowing past this shorter term resistance. And then we see sellers try to step in. They can't retrace really any of that movement. Very poor attempt by the sellers, and we see a gap up and continuation. At this point, sellers really try to step in, kind of filling that gap there. But once we get around the top of these candles, slightly below it, we see that buyer step right back in, pushing us higher, blowing past this range here. And we're kind of seeing a continued pattern. So we get up again around that 457, and now we see sellers step in. But guys, we're kind of finding a support level here and continuing higher with that nice green wide bar. So definitely could be seeing a little bit of a stair step like pattern like we're already seeing, kind of continuing the trend, a little bit of pullback, movement up, a little bit of pullback, movement up. Definitely like what I'm seeing here, and the hourly is correlating to what we're seeing on the daily and the weekly. Really nice price action, and we remain bullish. So that's all I got for you on Nio, guys. Looking really good after breaking out of 2 major resistance zones and continue our movement up. This is how you want to see price move after getting a breakout. We're not getting very contested by the sellers. We're really seeing buyers remain that control and keep that pressure on. As long as buyers can keep coming in and volume can keep flushing in here, guys, we're looking very good to the upside. If sellers want to step in, it's going to have to be sooner than later, as buyers are really getting that momentum here, guys, and we're breaking out of a very important zone. Let me know your price predictions in the comments below, both short term and long term. If you guys want to see more Nio videos, make sure to like and subscribe. I appreciate you guys watching the entire video all the way through. And as always, trade smart, and I will see you all on the next one.